Welcome in to Red River North. Yeah, on the Ghost and Friends channel. Dave Myrick, 1077 The Franchise, flagship station of Oklahoma Athletics. Pleased to be joined by D1 Baseball. Actually, he's just college baseball. You look it up in the dictionary, you got this dude right here, Kendall Rogers. Kendall, how we doing, man?
Man, we're doing all right. It feels like the season just started and we're already like a week away from the mid-season point. So I can't believe it's already here.
Yeah, it's kind of depressing to think about, but man, we got some action to talk about. Let's dive right in.
Yeah.
I cover Oklahoma baseball. Going back through some tweets, I know that you guys brought them up as maybe a sleeper preseason, but I'm not sure anybody saw 21-3 out of the gate.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the biggest thing when I look at Oklahoma so far this season is, they've really risen to the occasion in big moments. I kind of think back to the series finale between South Carolina when they kind of had to kick things into gear late in that game. They were able to do that. I kind of think back to the weekend that I saw them in Round Rock, which was kind of their first big impression. Getting wins over Virginia, getting wins over Oregon State. They looked awesome that weekend. They played great defense. They pitched. They got key hits when they needed it. And for this team, I feel like so far it really has been a wholesale effort. Obviously, their pitching has been really good for the most part. But when you look at their offense, they've done what they needed to do when they need to do it. And I kind of thought with this team coming in the season, which is why I had them as kind of my top 25 sleeper, is I felt like they would pitch at a really high level. The question mark I had, can they do enough offensively? And it's kind of interesting because I think back to the fall when I was talking to Skip, and he was like, you know what, like on paper, like this offense doesn't look awesome, but he's like, what we're going to be able to do is manufacture runs. We're going to be able to move runners. We're going to be able to get creative offensively. And we think that's going to end up paying dividends. And it certainly has so far.
Yeah, Kendall, you brought it up, man. I mean, pitching, all the hype coming into this year, I don't remember anything like it. Maybe the COVID shortened season, that
Yeah.
stat had a lot going for it. But the two guys on the back end, Saturday, Sunday, still kind of up in the air. But man, Kyson Witherspoon is not. I mean, making a case for one of the best pitchers in all of college baseball.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, when you look at the year he's having, somebody asked us in our chat the other day, like, can he actually win the Golden Spikes? And, he would have to be in the running. I mean, obviously right now, I'd probably lean towards like a Justin LeBron or a Bear Jones at LSU to win that just because they're a position player. They're playing premium positions. They're producing at a high level to play. But, I mean, Kyson would be in the mix. I mean, you're talking about a guy, 58 strikeouts, 7 walks. I mean, teams are only hitting him at a 175 clip. I mean, that's outrageous. I mean, it's to the point where, I mean, unless you just don't score any runs at all, like you're going to win most of your Friday games. So, yeah, what he's done this year, I mean, to have that dominant numbers, it's a little surprising. But for him to be dominant to some degree, not surprising. I mean, I think we all kind of saw glimpses of this last year, just elite stuff. And he just really put all the pieces together. And I don't think anybody is too surprised under Skip Johnson that an elite talent like him is able to put all those pieces together like he has.
Yeah, I brought up the what's after him, the weekend rotation. They tried with Cam Johnson. There's been some, back and forth. Maybe he's got an illness going on or something, but a very highly
Yeah.
prospect came to the LSU, then Oklahoma. I was really curious because you brought it up under Skip Johnson for a full offseason, what that would look like. I don't think the experiment's dead, but definitely a guy they're going to need to step up down the stretch here.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. I mean, the thing about this interesting about Cam Johnson is he's had some moments this year where he's actually been pretty good. It's just, the biggest thing with Cam has always not necessarily been his arm, not necessarily been his stuff. It's, when the lights come on, can he step up? And that was the issue he had at LSU last year. He ended up having an assortment of issues, but I mean, one of the big issues he had at LSU last year was it felt like any kind of big moment that he was thrust into is like things just kind of melted down. And what ended up happening is by the end of the year, I want to say he was down to like 90, 91 with his fastball, which, I mean, you've seen him. If he's throwing 90, 91, there's something going on there. So obviously the good thing is so far this year, the velocity's been back to normal, but Yeah, I think down the stretch, for this team to, I mean, at this point, you got to be talking about Omaha. You got to be talking about potentially even competing for a national championship. For this team to accomplish both of those goals, you'd really like to have a premier talent like him ready to rock and roll there in the postseason.
Yeah, you said it. I mean, watching the guy, I think he was trying to aim a little bit last year. When pitchers struggle with control, that's kind of what you see. But hopefully he's back kind
Yeah.
of where they thought he would be. But when you look at OU's schedule, not the world beater so far. You mentioned Oregon State, Virginia, decent wins, South Carolina, Mississippi State. Yeah, they're good teams, but they got some tough ones coming up. Talk about at this weekend, the Crimson Tide playing really good baseball.
Yeah, that's a tough series for OU. I mean, I think, I saw Alabama 2 weekends ago against Texas A&M, and the thing about Bama is that's a really tough lineup, top to bottom. I mean, I think they actually ended up moving Cade Snell up the lineup, but the weekend I saw him, I think they had Cade Snell hitting like seventh, and I mean, he's hit like 2 walk-offs for him this year. He's a really good older guy. I think he's a fifth-year senior. Will Hodo's done a really nice job in the lineup. Obviously, Justin LeBron, arguably the best player in college baseball. I mean, Brendan Norton. I mean, they've got a really deep offensive lineup, and what they're going to do, and this is where the back end, the rotation really comes into play for OU, is what they're going to do is they're going to make you throw strikes. Like, they are not going to swing at garbage very often, and so that's kind of the scouting report on their offense. Pitching wise, I do think OU can have success. I mean, obviously Riley Quick is a really big arm for them. I think he's up to 99 to 100 when I saw him in College Station. But really, other than that, like, I mean, their arms are good. Their arms aren't to the point where you're like, okay, we're not going to score but about 2 or 3 runs in this game. Those aren't their arms can 100% be scored upon.
Oh, that's good intel. I know every OU fan is really looking forward to LSU next week, and that's
Oh
gonna
yeah.
that's gonna be my segue, dude. I mean, Oklahoma didn't jump to the SEC alone. They allowed the Texas Longhorns to tag along with them. So we got to talk Texas. They're off to a good start, also a shining record, and just took a series from LSU. Looking pretty good in Austin.
Well, I need you when Zach comes on later. I need you to tell him that Texas was just a tag along there and get his response to that.
Oh, I do every time I talk to Zach.
Yeah, I mean, that'll give you a really good idea where this team is. Obviously, Alabama's really good, but LSU's a different animal. I will say this about LSU: I thought Texas played really, really well over the weekend, and I thought LSU, outside of the Kane Anderson start on Friday, played pretty average baseball, and they at least had a chance to win that series. So it gives you an idea of like, A, Texas is better than we expected. B, LSU's pretty damn good because they had a chance to win that series despite not playing very good baseball the last couple of days. So, the big key for them, especially with the weather the way it typically is this time of year in Norman, where the winds is howling out. Obviously, the big key for OU is going to be, keeping Bear Jones from just going crazy. I want to say he hit a ball last night like 445 feet. It was like 112 off the bat. I don't think he hit a ball against Texas less than like 108 or 109 off the bat. I mean, he is insane. So he's obviously going to be a big key. But again, kind of like I was talking about Alabama's pitching, I feel like LSU's pitching outside of Cade Anderson can be had. I mean, I feel like Anthony Ianson, he's a really good arm. He's got a really good splitter. But I mean, he's a guy that you can certainly exploit. Chase Shores, I mean, the plan against him will end up being make him throw strikes. Texas, I thought, did a really good job of making Chase Shores, or at least making Chase Shores attempt to throw strikes. They were he was unable to do that. Therefore, Texas kind of sat on fastball and just kind of knocked him around a little bit. So, I like LSU's arms. I don't love LSU's arms outside of Cade Anderson and maybe Casey Evans, the talented freshman. So I think there's some wiggle room there from a pitching standpoint to kind of get after them at times.
We got some listeners chiming in. I guess he's asking you what kind of Bama crowd will skip an OU baseball face Thursday through Saturday down in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't think the Thursday game would have a lot of people there. I want to say the Thursday game against Tennessee, granted, it was like 38 degrees, but
Oof.
I want to say the Thursday game against Tennessee didn't really have a huge crowd. But, they supported them well the last 2 games of the series. So Thursday, not so great. The rest of the weekend, probably pretty solid. Alabama is not a kind of a historic, like, attendance king in the SEC. I mean, back in the Jim Wells days, in the early 2000s, they would get pretty good crowds. But, I'm trying to think of the last time they've gotten like 6,000 plus people to a game, and it's been a while. So, it's one of those places kind of like OU where they're kind of developing into baseball fans. I even think back to this past weekend, when I tweeted out about OU having a packed house, like, a couple of like Mississippi State fans chimed in. We're like, oh, 4,000, yip-de-doo. Well, I mean, you know what? I've been to a big series in Norman before where there were like 2,000 people there. So I actually feel like it's a huge deal, especially in that ballpark, if 4,500 people are there. And let's not forget, it's not like that ballpark holds 7,000. So 4,500 in that ballpark, I mean, that's filled to the gills. And so that's been great to see. And I think kind of looking ahead to next weekend, I would imagine that place is going to be jam-packed for LSU.
Yeah, oh yeah, man. Especially, I don't want to get too far ahead, but if Oklahoma happens to win the series and Bama LSU takes care of it, that's going to be probably the marquee matchup in the SEC next week in Norman.
Yeah, and I would implore OU fans to show up because I can promise you LSU fans will show up in mass.
Bro, we've been on the radio for 3 years telling OU baseball fans to get ready for what's coming. You're going to see a lot of purple regardless of what happens this weekend. But
yeah.
I do want to touch base on the rest of the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of weird, kind of bipolar right now. Florida, Texas A&M, teams that we thought were going to be awesome are struggling. There's still time to turn it around, man. But the Aggies, I mean, guys like Laviolette, just an extremely talented lineup. Well, what's going on in College Station?
Yeah, the one thing I kind of looked at with A&M coming into the season is I thought that no matter what, coaching-wise, I felt like their offense wouldn't skip a beat. And I would say wouldn't skip a beat, but their offense would be highly productive. And their offense has not. I mean, they've been horrible with runners in scoring position. They had 49 strikeouts in 3 games against Vandy over the weekend. The guys, like you mentioned, Laviolette and company, they haven't gotten it done. And so, and meanwhile, not to make A&M fans too mad here, but I mean, meanwhile, you look over in Austin, and Texas offense has been a little bit better than expected. They had some outstanding at bats over the weekend against LSU, et cetera. So, I mean, it gives you an idea of like how a difference in, let's say, offensive coordinator changes, like how much of a difference that makes, because Michael Early was the hitting coach. He was not the offensive coordinator. Schloss was the offensive coordinator at A&M. And so I thought A&M, would be fine offensively just because so many of those guys have been to run the block, but they've been bad. And, they're running out of time. I mean, you have Kentucky at home this weekend. If they don't win that series, I mean, I don't see the pathway. They still got to go to Tennessee. They still got to go to Texas. They still got to go to Arkansas. They still have to go to Georgia. And by the way, they still play LSU at home. So, I mean, I don't see how in the world they get to 13 wins without a series win this weekend. So I'm not ready to just I've been around the block a few times enough in college baseball to never say never on a team, but I'm kind of running out of patience on them, to be honest with you.
Well, man, they're so talented. It wouldn't surprise me if they go.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me that much. I mean, honestly, like I think they need to get a taste of winning. I think if they went out this weekend at home, played really well against UK, won that series, I think they can make a move. And I'm not saying they can make a move to compete for the conference championship, but I mean, they can make a move to at least get in the tournament. And I would say this about those guys. I would not want them on my regional. I think when you look at what their rotation's done, Ryan Prager, Justin Lampkin, Miles Patton all have ERAs under 2.25. I mean, that's pretty incredible considering how bad their offense has been. So you kind of feel like if their offense gets going a little bit, they might be in pretty good shape. It's kind of funny. I think I was actually talking to Zach about this in Austin over the weekend, is damn well that those guys are going to be clicking on all cylinders by the time those two teams play in late April. Like, that's just the way things work, right? Like, hey, they're going to struggle, and then all of a sudden it's going to be like, well, here we go.
Yeah, any Texas fan in the comments or watching, you can count on that. That team is going to
be I would be very surprised if they played poorly in that series. But, you mentioned Florida. I want to touch on the Gators too. I don't – like A&M, they have injuries. Pierce Coppola still on the shelf on the mound. Leon Peterson, their talented Friday guy, was on the shelf last weekend against Georgia. Mark Etheridge for us did report tonight that he is going to start this weekend against Ole Miss, which is huge. I mean, hopefully he's ready to go. Hopefully it's not one of those things where it's like, hey, we need a win, so let's try this thing out. Hopefully he is pretty healthy. Sully is really good with arms, so I'm assuming that's the case. But yeah, I mean, they're 0-6 in the league. They're at Ole Miss. I mean, again, kind of like A&M, that's danger territory. I mean, if you're 1-8 in this league, I mean, it's very hard to crawl out of. LSU was able to start 3-12 and end up making a regional, but to start out 1-8, man, that's tough.
It's all about getting hot at the right time. Those two teams have enough talent. I can see it happening, but they better start putting it together pretty
Yeah.
fast. Well, you just brought up a lot of the best teams in the league: Arkansas, Tennessee, LSU. Kind of like right now, almost the halfway point, if you would. Give me your ranking. Where do Oklahoma and Texas slide in SEC baseball?
Yeah, so I would probably go with Tennessee number one. Yeah, I mean, I think
Yeah.
after watching those two teams play, or watching Tennessee play at Minute Maid a few weeks ago, man, I love the lineup. Frank Anderson and Tony have once again done an awesome job with the pitching staff. Marcus Phillips was kind of the question mark. Marcus Phillips has gotten much better. Dylan Loy's been really good out of the bullpen. I just don't look at Tennessee as a team with a question mark right now. Like, there's nothing about that team that I go, man, they're really going to have to do this a little better to win the national championship. So I would have Tennessee one. I would probably, I mean, we actually have Arkansas ranked 2, but I actually think I would have Georgia ahead of them in my personal pecking order. I just look at the number of runs that they scored last weekend against Florida, and honestly, the number of runs they scored the last 3 weekends, period. And it's just incredibly impressive. Wes Johnson is known as a pitching guru, but like Nick Amorati and that coaching staff's done a really good job with the offense. And by the way, there's still time for Wes Johnson to kind of get that pitching staff dialed in. So I'd probably go Tennessee, Georgia. I'm actually going to go against the grain on the rest of our staff here, and I'm going to go Texas, LSU, Arkansas in that order. I really like the way Texas looks right now. Like, the rotation's panned out. Jared Spencer's been awesome. Ruger Riojas has been good. Luke Harrison's good enough. And then Dylan Volantis out of the bullpen. I mean, he is elite as elite gets. And so, I would probably have Texas and LSU and then Arkansas and then OU. I mean, that gives you an idea of just how good this league is. I mean, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah.
5 teams. And then I'm finally to Oklahoma. And Oklahoma's a top 10 team.
Well, that's what I did a show before this, and that's what I told the guy. You can be 6th or 7th in the SEC and still be top 10 in America. That's how deep.
Well, I've always told people, and I kind of told Texas friends of mine, even Gaines at OU, this in the offseason, is like, when you go in the SEC in baseball, like, you almost have to just ignore the standings to some degree. Like, you could be the 8th place team in the conference, and you still got as good of a chance to win the national championship as the 3rd place team. Well, that's how deep this league is in baseball.
It's insane, and I think a lot of OU fans, they're starting to get their eyes open. Just briefly, we got to touch on Georgia, man. At all the surprise teams, I did not see the Bulldogs being this good.
Yeah, I mean, they lose Charlie Condon last year, and then Rylan Zaborowski, the Miami, Ohio transfer, comes in. The dude's hitting, 478 with, like, outrageous power. And this is a guy that did not do anywhere near that in the Mid-American Conference. So I don't know what's in the water over there, but they're doing something right from an offensive standpoint. And so I've been so impressed by those guys. I'm not sure there's a staff that does a better evaluation job in the portal than Georgia. I mean, I think if you look back in the last 2 years of the guys that Wes and the staff have brought in, I think they've hit on all of them. You look at last year with Zelda and all those guys and whatnot. You look at this year with Robbie Burnett and guys like that. I mean, they've nailed every single one of them. So that coaching staff's done a tremendous evaluation job.
Well, Kendall, I know that we're up against it. I know you got a prior obligation to get to. I just want to thank you for hopping on. Maybe one more question.
Absolutely.
Oklahoma's a mild surprise.
I would say, I mean, we talked about it a little bit earlier, but I would definitely say, they're a little bit of a surprise. I mean, I had OU as a non-top 25 sleeper, which means I would have had OU in the kind of the 18 to 25 range. So for them to be sitting at number 9 right now certainly would be a surprise to me. And, I think this team can be better. I think their back in the rotation can be better. I think their offense could be even better. And so they're trending in the right direction. I saw somebody mention as well Rylan Galvan over the weekend, not to talk too much about Texas on an OU pod, but Galvan was really good over the weekend for Texas. As a matter of fact, I want to say we had him like third or fourth in the country in our catcher power rankings today. He has gotten so much better. He's much better defensively. He's got much more accurate throws to second, and his power production has really just taken off. Like, he is a legitimate premier, like, early day 2 draft guy right now. And I mean, I would have thought you were a little crazy had you told me that at the end of last year, because he was not very good in the regional.
No, it's not going to matter. I got a stake bet with Zach Sim that Oklahoma wins the last series of the year.
Is that in Norman or in Austin?
Norman.
Oh, boy.
Speak of the devil, and he shall appear, Mr. Zach Sim. Kendall, thank you so much, man.
You
got to get to it. You
got it, brother. See you, Zach.
Later, Kendall.
Kendall Rogers, D1 Baseball. Zach, that's apropos timing, brother. Just talking about the last series of the year. And Norman, look, Texas is playing better than people thought this year. They've got a glowing record. Oklahoma's playing better than people thought. As we sit here, the two newbies in the Southeastern Conference, kind of the talk of the town right now, both Oklahoma and Texas.
Yeah, I mean, I think both teams came into the season with some guys that people knew were going to be the dude, right? Like Malachi and Kyson, everyone knew that they were going to be good pitchers. Now, to the extent of what they've been able to do so far, I think maybe a little surprise. But same thing with Texas, right? Like, everyone knew that the Texas had a really veteran lineup and that it could hit. And I would say, in fact, Texas has kind of downplayed their offense. Like, Rylan Galvan's leading in home runs, not Max Blue, not Jalen Flores. So to some degree, from the Texas standpoint, maybe a little scary for some teams that Texas could actually do a lot better. They could be just blasting people with their offense and have the pitching staff doing what it's doing right now. But certainly the pitching staff for Texas has got to be the surprise. But yeah, I mean, if you would have told me that Florida and A&M would be 0-6 at this point at the bottom of the table, I would have told you you're crazy, because SEC sweeps just don't happen that often, and back-to-backs is even crazier.
Zach, talk to me about the LSU series. Huge for Texas last weekend.
Yeah, massive series. I talked to Slossnagel on our Monday show, and I said, I don't think I've seen the Dish Falk Field crowd be that loud and that into the game in a couple of years now. I mean, it's been like the regional, super regional type time frame. Friday night, it felt like the crowd was a little anxious almost, but it almost felt like they were mimicking what the team was showing. Even Slossnagel said, like, he had to get onto his dugout about, y'all are just really quiet. Like, this is not the same dugout that we saw at Mississippi State. And then Saturday, I mean, from the first pitch, everyone was into it. Everyone was living and dying by every strike. But it was a great crowd. There's a lot of LSU fans that showed up, which is always fun because they're a great folk. And so it was, a little party atmosphere in Austin this past weekend.
Well, we're going to do something here. Since you cover Texas, I cover Oklahoma. We've got half an hour to go. We're going to kind of flip the interviewee. You can ask me questions about Oklahoma baseball. I'm going to ask you questions about Texas baseball. I'll start. Is there anything, are you fearful of any type of big head now that you've got the glowing ranking and then the great record and all that? Complacency starts to set in. Are you worried about that at all?
Not necessarily. I think one thing the coaching staff has done a really good job at Texas is they keep them really well grounded. It's not game to game. It's literally inning by inning. They're not trying to look ahead and say, oh man, we got 6 outs. Like, let's get geared up. We have 6 outs. It's, hey man, you got 1 out in front of you. You got to go focus on that. And so, from Slossnagel to Tulowitzki to Max Wiener, every single one of those guys, to some degree, places more emphasis on the mental side of the game than even like the physical side. So I don't think so. I think my biggest concern with Texas would be the pitching kind of regresses to the mean. If they're not able to sustain this kind of effort throughout the entire season, because it is a grind, right? Like, there's going to come a weekend, and similar to Friday night, like, they're going to get punched in the face, and they're just, it kind of wears on you over time. So that's my biggest concern about Texas.
Okay.
For Oklahoma, y'all, the hitting's probably been better than I think what some people might have expected. Obviously, well, it's all about the chaos, right? The running and putting pressure on the pitching staffs. Do you feel like that some of those younger guys or the new guys might hit the kind of proverbial wall at any point during the season, or have they been really just kind of locked in?
Zach, the funny thing about Oklahoma, well, the reason why they've been successful up till now is you've got guys that you never would have expected having gigantic moments when you least expect. You go through the 1 through 9 pregame, and you're like, out of all the guys listed, I would expect the one that finally did it to do it. And that's also my concern because you've got Easton Carmichael, you got Jackson Willits, Jason Walk has had a fantastic start to 25. He's starting to tail off a little bit, but still getting on base via the walk. But that's my concern with OU is eventually if one of those unexpecteds don't have it, then that puts a ton of pressure on Easton and Jackson, which there already was coming into this year, and both are producing at a high level. But you brought up Kyson, Malachi Witherspoon. Kyson is unbelievable. I mean, I think 58 strikeouts to like 7 walks. I mean, the dude is just – he's throwing gas, unbelievable velocity and movement, just disgusting pitches, painting the black at 99. But behind that, there is starting to build some concern. Malachi moved from Saturday to Sunday, and it seems like the last couple of weeks getting over that third inning hump for whatever reason. At Cam Johnson that was starting Sunday is out of the rotation. He I guess he had a illness last week, so concern with that pitching staff, Zach. But I'll tell you, behind it, absolutely just nothing but depth out in the bullpen they can go to. So that's the good thing for Oklahoma right now.
Yeah.
All right, Texas. If you had to give me a weakness for Texas right now, pitching, hitting, base stealing, whatever, what would it be?
I think the biggest weakness that I've seen is, probably that third starter, kind of similar to what you talked about Oklahoma, is where, they want Dylan Volantis to be the guy, and he's going to be the guy at some point. I mean, he's ridiculously talented for a freshman, and not just the physical makeup, but the mental makeup. Jason Flores has been showing flashes of what he could be in that Sunday role, but it feels like you might run into an instance where, and they do this, right? Like they're not afraid to bring a Volantis or a Flores on a Friday night or a Saturday to go win a game and steal it. But it feels like they could run into a situation where they go all out on Friday night and they, might have to burn Grubbs and Riojas to get that win. And they just don't have anything. They don't have the horses left to get them through the rest of the weekend. And so, not having a third starter, while sometimes is the norm in the SEC, it's also a little like, that could come back to bite them at some point for sure.
You always want – I know that I've had some OU fans DM me about this because I came out and said, look, the staff wanted Cam Johnson to work. That's why he's on in the third starter spot on Sunday. Cade Crossland, that came in as a very highly touted JUCO transfer, was always thought to be in that. But still, if you got a staff that has their 3 starters, they always would want that to work out in the first place. I know that you've got excuses and reasons to get other guys. Having those 3 guys set, especially start conference play now a couple weeks into it, invaluable.
From the y'all's pitching staff, I know y'all have a lot of depth in that bullpen, but outside of Dylan Crooks, is there a guy that, if you have to burn Crooks on a Friday night, is there a guy that y'all know that can just come in and lock it down at this point? Or is it, really relying upon him to be that door slammer at the end of the game?
He is no doubt the closer, and that the guy has been absolute nails. Now, to your point, I think they would prefer to have somebody as a mid-late reliever to come in, 8th inning, maybe the 7th, and take it to where they can get Dylan. Jason Bowden, the Texas A&M transfer that hardly pitched for the Aggies, has pitched okay this year for Oklahoma, kind of on that back-end role. But Dylan Tate was a guy that everybody kind of had penciled in for that. He's been unavailable due to injury up till now. Not quite sure what the status is. But, I think they feel good enough with the guys they do have. A lot of returning starters that are now in the bullpen, like Jamie Hitt, has been around college baseball for 30 years. And he's pitched in a lot of high leverage spots as a lefty. He's done pretty good this year out of the bullpen. So I think they look to him to get to Dylan Crooks. But that's a great question, and we're going to see it. Look, Oklahoma hasn't played the cream of the crop in the SEC yet. They play two of the worst teams in the league. So all these questions are going to be answered eventually.
Yeah, makes sense.
Well, Zach, you just saw LSU live and in person in Austin. Tell me about the Tigers. They come to Norman next week.
Yeah, I mean, from a Friday night perspective, that's going to be electric baseball just on the mound. I mean, neither team might score a run, whether you have Tyson or you have Cade Anderson, because Cade Anderson, he's the real deal. Like after the game, Schlossnagle couldn't talk about anything but Cade Anderson, and it's not like Texas didn't have hits against him. It was just they couldn't string together success. It was bits and pieces when he, maybe missed too much over the plate, or he didn't have enough break on the slider. But a true 4-pitch mix, he doesn't blow it by you. He sits 95 tops, but man, he moves it really well. He pitches in a rhythm. And so, Rylan Galvan, y'all mentioned he might be one of the hottest hitters in America. First thing he said after Friday night's game was, man, he was in such a rhythm that the ball just looked faster because you couldn't catch up to what he was doing. His movement is so smooth and so quick to the plate. And so, that's something that OU is going to have to adjust to. Now, they've obviously seen a guy like Kyson on the mound that can, run it up there. But from a pure stuff, yeah, Cade Anderson's the real deal. I think I expected more out of LSU's bullpen, to be honest. Kassan Evans was really, really good, the freshman. I'm kind of surprised he didn't come in on Saturday. Zach Cowan, their reliever, that was on Friday night. I thought they kind of misused him because there was never a time when that game felt like it was in doubt on Friday night. But they let him go kind of deep in relief of Cade Anderson, which meant he wasn't available for the rest of the weekend. So, I think if Jay Johnson had that to do over again, use Zach Cowan to lock 1 or 2 innings in and then bring your rest of your bullpen in, because then that might have made a big difference. Because that guy, again, not going to blow you away. He's going to hit 91, 92, but he's got a devastating changeup and he pairs it with a really nice slider. And so, outside of their top guys, though, it didn't feel like LSU pitching staff of old. I mean, there's guys that are going to come in. I had to double check one time. The guy came in, it was 100, 99, 99, 98, 100. And I was like, oh, damn, okay.
Yeah.
But it was flat, right? It didn't have a ton of movement, didn't have the spin you would expect. And then from the hitting side, they can hit. I mean, Jared Jones is an unbelievable masher. He's got power to all fields. But I think the guy that really impressed me the most was the freshman Derek Curiel, their leadoff guy. Because you think, oh, a freshman, he's going to hit a wall. He looks the spot. He recognizes pitches better than anyone else on that team, and you can't make a mistake. I mean, if you have to be dot perfect, or else he will take advantage of it. So, yeah.
Well, Zach, it's going to be a fun SEC baseball season. Already is. We've got LSU coming to town next week, but I'll tell you what, Oklahoma has a tough series coming up. The Alabama Crimson Tide, they're playing some baseball, Bubba. So is Georgia. I mean, this conference top to bottom, you don't really have your usual suspects, I guess, coming into the year with Florida and A&M that everybody thought was going to be top 10, top 5, but they have pieces to make up for that. I mean, like I say, Georgia playing unbelievable baseball. So is Alabama. I watched that first game against Tennessee that Thursday, and it seemed like the entire Alabama universe was fired up. They were going to beat the Volunteers in Tennessee. Yeah, that they did what they do. But Alabama's a good baseball team. Yeah,
their Friday night guy is really, really good. And then Justin LeBron, their shortstop, I mean, he's must-watch TV. Like every time he's at bat, you're just like, what's he going to do? Like he's that freaking good. I mean, you talk about the Golden Spikes Award. I mean, if there was like a mid-year contender, like just write his name in stone, because it's going to be hard to see someone surpass what he's done so far at this point in the season.
I recommended Oklahoma this weekend. Just walk him on 4 pitches and take your chances with. I mean, the dude is hitting like 370 with 12 jacks, 51 RBI. We're not even to the halfway point of the season yet. Going to be fun baseball, Zach. But anything that you want to close up with as we head to week 3 of SEC play?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest thing for Oklahoma is I just want to see them on like how they perform away from Norman. Their home record's been really, really good. Now it's a very small sample size. They 3 wins, 2 losses on away, but Alabama is not the most imposing environment, which I think is good for the Sooners, but just, it's a different game when you're traveling. You get on the bus or the charter flight, you got to get out there, you got to get your hacks in, get used to the field. So that's my biggest thing for Oklahoma this weekend is just can they do it at away? Because no offense to South Carolina, but that's just not a very good ball club at this time. So
no, and I'll counter with my closing argument here, my rebuttal. I think Oklahoma was under more pressure at home, Zach, with a big crowd. I'll tell you why, because they're just not used to it. That's no knock. It's just, it kind of is. They just haven't been the crowds at Dale, and when there have been the last couple of years, the baseball team hasn't really done their part. They've lost those games midweeks against Oklahoma State. I think Dallas Baptist last year, jammed to the gills. Oklahoma lost them both. OU fans are fickle. Eventually, they get tired of walking out after a loss. But I did think this last weekend was really good to get that place packed out and have Mississippi State come all the way back from 7 down to take the lead late, 11-10, and still face that pressure because when you want to press to impress in front of your home crowd, they faced that. They fell behind late in a series. They were already behind 1-0. Came back to win that, then came back to win the series. So I'll always think this club in particular, there was a lot more pressure to perform on that home crowd. I think when they're on the road, they're free swinging. The pressure's not on them. It's on the other team. So we'll see. I mean, you got to go do it. There's a lot of expectations on OU baseball now. Now is really the first big test of the season.
Yeah, see, for Texas, it's kind of the scary opposite, right? Like, when they go on the road, and my stepfather's from Columbia, Missouri, so I've been to their baseball field a bunch of times growing up.
I'm sorry.
But there's not a crowd there. It's going to be deathly silent. You're not going to have 2,000 fans. And so my biggest concern for Texas this weekend is actually like, can they take that energy that they take out of the fans from Dishball Field, and can they transplant that to Como? Because if it's just dead inside, I've seen this from Arlington. They don't have that same energy, the same spark. And so, if I'm Schlossnagel or Tulowitzki, or if I'm Nolan Kane or even Max Wiener, I'm telling them, guys, I'm going to bring guys that probably will not have any chance of playing this weekend just to be freaking cheerleaders. And I'm dead serious. Like, I bring guys that are the hype guys to get everyone excited, get everyone going, because you're not going to see it from the fans. You're not going to get that energy from them. So, yeah, it's the exact opposite for Texas this weekend, in my opinion.
That's crazy. And I know what you're talking about. You and I have both been to Arlington to cover the Big 12 championships. On a Thursday afternoon, you can hear like the birds chirping up in that place. It's awkwardly quiet. And yeah, Missouri baseball, they've got all the reason to be quiet. They're terrible, and that's going to be a bad road trip. Can Texas ascend and play to their ranking, play to their record, even though the crowd will not appear, like they should for this game? But Texas they got some tougher games on the horizon. There's a series coming up in Norman into the year that I'm looking forward to. They got some tough games before then, though.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hell of a weekend when Oklahoma's facing LSU. Texas is hosting Georgia at home, man. So that'll be a proverbial top 10 matchup, assuming Texas doesn't just completely lose itself to the Tigers this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, you talk about big boy baseball. There's a lot of big series still left to play, and the 5-1 record is what it is, and it's great. But man, it's only the second weekend. There's a lot to play for still.
Yeah, I didn't think about that. Texas plays Georgia. That's going to be. I was talking to Kendall before, if Oklahoma beats Alabama in this series, I don't want to get too far ahead. If they do, and then they roll into to face LSU. If LSU takes care of Mississippi State this weekend, that's going to set up to be one of the marquee matchups of the SEC. Texas, Georgia will no doubt be right there with them. That's going to be a fun weekend.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Zach, what's going to do it, brother? I appreciate you hopping on short notice and all. Always a pleasure.
Not a problem. Happy to always jump on, and I'm just counting down the days till I get that nice medium rare steak. So.
Well, Kendall made sure to tell me to remind you that Texas tagged along with Oklahoma to the SEC, and Oklahoma was nice enough to accompany their little brother to go to the SEC.
I'm pretty sure we paid y'all's way into the SEC. So.
Oh, Zach, always enjoy it, man. You have a good night.
You as well. Appreciate it.
All right, man. Zach Sim. This is Dave Myrick. This has been the Red River North SEC Baseball. Kendall Rogers. Zach Sim, as good as it gets. We will talk to you guys next week.